Zillow has released their 10 hottest real estate markets for 2025, and number 10 is Salt Lake City, Utah. Salt Lake City has amazing population growth at over 6%, but it's become crazy expensive with the median home price of over $525,000. So good luck finding cash flow at those prices. Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Dave Meyer, head of real estate investing at BiggerPockets. I've been investing in real estate for more than 15 years, so I've seen many different cities heat up and cool off when it comes to investing, but even I can't resist clicking on these top 10 lists every single year. Zillow, the biggest, baddest real estate list maker of them all, recently released their top 10 hottest markets for 2025. And last year, they absolutely nailed it. They got it right with Buffalo at number 1. That was a red hot market all year. So the question is, can they do it again? Today, I'll share my opinions on each of Zillow's top 10 hottest housing markets, and spoiler alert, I disagree with a couple of them. All right, so back to our list. Number 9 on Zillow's hottest real estate markets for 2025 is Richmond, Virginia. I actually invested not so far from Richmond. I like the areas. I love the fundamentals of this part of the country. There are tons of people moving here. There are a lot of good jobs. And relative to the rest of this list, for an investor, I like it because it has a higher percentage of cash flow in terms of rent to price ratio than most of the other things on this list. Moving on to number 8 is Kansas City, Missouri. I do like this market for investors because it does have just all-around strength. The population growth is solid. It is very affordable relative to the national average, and it has good potential for cash flow. There's a really strong economic base. So overall, if you're a cash flow focused investor, Kansas City is one you might want to check out. Number 7 is a market I just like generally. It's Charlotte, North Carolina. I think it has a little bit of everything. Strongest population growth of any city on this list. One of the strongest population growth anywhere in the country, and nearly 8% over the last couple of years. It has really strong, high-paying jobs like banking and insurance. It's going to be harder to find in some cash flow in this type of market, but if you're looking for long-term growth potential, Charlotte might be your best chance. And number 6 on Zillow's hottest housing markets for 2025, we have St. Louis. And honestly, this one surprised me. It's not one I would pick myself for a place to invest. It is very affordable with a median home price of just $256,000. So that is good. The cash flow potential is pretty strong, but it just doesn't have a very strong demand profile. Actually, the city last year shrunk just a little bit, but that's not a great sign in my opinion. The vacancy rate for apartments is relatively high, and it's one personally I would pass on. Number 5, on the other hand, is another affordable market, but I think has better fundamentals. It's Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Philly is one of the biggest markets, and as you'll see, is a theme over the next couple of cities. It's not a secondary city because it's a big city in its own right, but it's not New York, it's not Boston, it's sort of these other next tier down of cities in the Northeast. It's way more affordable than those other cities that I just mentioned, but it has relatively strong cash flow potential. It has very low vacancy rates for rentals, and a huge city like that has a very dynamic economy. Big fan of Philly. All right, moving on to number 4 on Zillow's list of the hottest housing markets for 2025. We have another one in the Northeast, which is Hartford, Connecticut. So as I mentioned, and as you'll see, markets like New York City and Boston, huge economic drivers, but they're very, very expensive. So we're seeing a lot of markets that are within driving distance, maybe if you have to commute 2 or 3 days a week to those areas, but are a fraction of the price. And Hartford, Connecticut absolutely fits the bill for this. It also has its own economic engine. There are a lot of insurance companies, financial companies that are in Hartford, but it's a lot more affordable. I do have some questions about Hartford over the long run because we are seeing trends of people moving back to the office. And I wonder if we'll see cities that are closer to New York and to Boston see more of the benefit, because Hartford is kind of far from both of them. It's right kind of smack dab in the middle. So it's not one I would invest in, but it does have good fundamentals. Moving into the top 3 hottest housing markets for 2025, according to Zillow, another one in the Northeast, Providence, Rhode Island. It's a small city that is within commuting distance of Boston, and housing prices are less than half, basically, of what they would be in Boston. So you can have a really high-paying job, but live in a more affordable but dynamic city that has a lot of universities and a lot of culture, and that bodes well for a housing market. It's also a great example of what happens to a housing market when there's very little new supply built. Rhode Island doesn't have a lot of new construction, either in terms of single-family homes or multifamily homes, and that's why we're seeing such a competitive market in Rhode Island. I will say that as an investor, it is a hard place to invest because there are some taxes for out-of-state investors that you would want to keep an eye on, but overall, I think the market is going to keep growing. Number 2 on our list is a city that I've personally been investigating a lot for potential investments. It's Indianapolis, Indiana. I really think that the Midwest of the United States has some long-term growth potential, and Indianapolis is probably the hottest market in the Midwest. It has huge population growth. It has massive job growth. It also has a good rent-to-price ratio, which suggests that cash flow could be found in this market. So when you look at all that together, the demand growth, relatively modest supply growth, the potential for cash flow and appreciation, Indianapolis, for me and my style of investing, is probably my personal favorite of any of the 10 on this list. That brings us to the number 1 single hottest housing market in the country for 2025, according to Zillow. And it is, once again, Buffalo, New York. They got it right last year with Buffalo. It looks like they are sticking with their guns, that Buffalo is going to be just as hot as it was last year. When you look at the boxes that need to be ticked for a market to be hot, Buffalo really does have it. Is it affordable? Check. Is there relatively low supply and not a lot of new houses coming online? Check. Is there job growth and population growth? Check. So all the things that led Buffalo to be the number 1 hottest housing market last year are absolutely still there. Zillow's sticking with their guns, and I think they have a good chance of being correct again. So those were the top 10 hottest markets according to Zillow. I also want to share a couple of sleeper picks that weren't quite in the top 10, but according to Zillow's research are some of the more up and coming markets that are growing the fastest. Maybe we'll see them in the top 10 list next year. Number 1 of those is Birmingham, Alabama. I love seeing that. I invested there a couple of years ago. There's a lot of strong fundamentals in that city. I think it's going to keep heating up. We have Oklahoma City, which we talk about a lot on the BiggerPockets podcast and our sister podcast On the Market. There is a lot of good fundamentals there. And the third is Virginia Beach, Virginia. Similar dynamics to what I was mentioning in Richmond. That whole area of the country just has great job growth, high quality of life, a lot of the stuff I like to see in a housing market personally. Okay, so those are the hottest markets Zillow is predicting for 2025. And I've shared my opinions about them with you, but I'd love to know your opinions on each of these markets. Or do you have a sleeper pick that you think will be the hottest market here in 2025? Make sure to let us know in the comments below. For BiggerPockets, I'm Dave Meyer. Thanks for watching.